Good evening, everybody. Before we go back to the regular dinim, I was asked the question that maybe we should talk about this Friday night, being that it's what's called Nittel. Okay, now the night of December 25th, which is celebrated as the birthday of, as he's called in our circles, Yoshke, or JC as they would call him in other places. So there's a custom of not learning on the night of Nittel from sundown until halachic midnight. Now, the name in our circles is called Nittel. Now, there's two ways of spelling it. One is Nittel with a tes, which is the way we spell it, or Nittel with a tuf. Now, Nittel with a tuf means hung. Nittel with the tes means taken away. So whichever way it is, I don't want to elaborate on the whole thing because there's other things to learn. But anyway, there's a custom for Jews not to learn on the night of Nittel, but only from sundown until halachic midnight. Now, the reason, the source of the custom of not learning is different things. The Rebbe writes in Hayom Yom that the reason is because we don't want to give life and vitality to that person, and because it's celebrated as his birthday, so then we don't want to give vitality by learning Torah. In fact, the Rebbe Rashab said that those diligent people, that was called Masmidim, that the 8 hours of not learning bothers them. He doesn't like them too much. In other words, it's interesting. In the Hasidic world, people do not learn the Nittel. In the non-Hasidic world, they dafka learn in the night of Nittel to learn Torah. Now, and by the way, it's interesting because Nittel, the Rebbe writes, whichever day of the calendar you keep it in that particular country where you are, like in Poland, they had a different day for Nittel than we have in America. In America, it's the night of December 25th, which again, this year would be Friday night. In many Sephardic communities, they don't keep this custom of Nittel and they do learn. Now, even though it's Friday night, and many places have a custom that because of Shabbos, they do not keep the customs of Nittel, meaning they'll learn anyway. But in our custom is that we still keep Nittel even this Friday night. So bottom line is, Friday night from about, let's say from 5 o'clock until approximately midnight, the custom is we don't learn Torah. And our custom is we don't learn Chassidus either. We just don't learn Torah. So those people that want to do chitas, let's say Friday is Chumash, Tillim, and Tanya, they should make sure to finish it before Shabbos. Or they could do it Friday night after halachic midnight, which is approximately 11:45. Or they can get up early Shabbos morning and learn then. Now, what you're allowed to do is, for instance, there was a time that Rabbi Weinberg, the lessons in Tanya that everybody knows of, which were the classes that Rabbi Yossel Weinberg, Olav Shalom, gave Saturday night for years and years and years and years, the lessons in Tanya, and the Rebbe edited every part of that class, and the Rebbe himself would listen to that Shir Tanya every Saturday night. The Rebbe and the Rebbitzin would, by the radio, listen to the Tanya on Tanya on the radio from Rabbi Weinberg, which eventually became the lessons in Tanya that we all know about. But the Rebbe, he asked the Rebbe what to do when Nittel was Saturday night. What should he do with the Tanya shir that he gives? The Rebbe told him then he should tell Hasidic stories. So you can't do Hasidic parsha. Let's say if your kids have parsha questions, you should push it off until Shabbos day. If they have whatever, you push it off to Shabbos day. And you could, but you don't have to waste time. You can do Hasidic stories Friday night at the table and things like that. That's basically it. Now, and other people are strict that if it's the night of Nittel, some people refrain from marital relations, unless if it's the night of mikvah. But again, that's only until halachic midnight. So in other words, if people want to be strict, not to have marital relations on this Friday night, it's only until like a quarter in LA time, like a quarter to 12 at night. Afterwards, it's not a problem. I'm just going into the practical things. That's it. You can sing your zmiris, you could sing the gunim, you could sing, do a lot of things. It's just that the custom is that you don't learn the night of nittle. Okay, that's as far as practical nittle, and let's get back to where we left off in the dinim of brachas. Last time we were discussing that something you make Haetz and Hadamah. If you eat a fruit and vegetable, that's what we're learning now about Haetz and Hadamah. You only make a bracha Haetz and Hadamah if you eat it the normal way of eating it. Like we said, if somebody would eat a raw potato, so then you wouldn't make a bracha Hadamah because the raw potato is not eaten normally as a food. So then if somebody would eat a raw potato, the bracha would be shahako. That we discussed last week. But on radishes, let's say you make Hadamah. Now, what happens if something, I'll give you an example, orange peels, today they make candied orange peels. Now the question is, if it's full of chocolate, we're going to soon discuss, then it's anyway shahako. But what bracha you make on orange peels? Now, obviously, if they're not sweet and they're bitter, you don't make a bracha on them at all. But if somebody wants to eat, let's say, candied orange peels, so because it's not the fruit itself, so it goes down a status. For instance, on an orange, you make Haetz. If you eat the peel of an orange, you would make Hadamah. If it's a vegetable that you eat Hadamah, and you'll be eating the seeds of a pumpkin, let's say, then it would be shahako. It always goes down. No, not necessarily. Yeah, if it's vegetables, then it would be Hadamah. If it's a fruit, then you'd make, instead of Haetz, you'd make Hadamah. If it's Hadamah and it's not the actual fruit itself, so then you'd make a shahako. It basically goes down a level because it's not as prominent as the fruit itself. Now, last time we started discussing, and I'm going to continue with this and move on, and that is that what happens.
Excuse me, Rabbi.
What?
I just want to make sure I got that right. When you know how like we have pistachio nuts and this and that. So are we saying that pumpkin seeds are not Hadamah, they're shahakol?
It seemed that from halacha would be a shahakol.
Okay, thank you.
Because it's not the fruit itself, unless if the fruit is grown for the seeds.
Well, like in the market, you buy these pumpkin seeds that are like with all the other.
But the pumpkin was grown for the pumpkin, not for the seeds.
Okay.
Unless if somebody is producing a farm, that the primary reason why they're growing the pumpkins is for the seeds, then the seeds would be Hadamah also.
Okay.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
what if you're eating an orange and then you want to eat, it's not the peel, it's the inside of the orange, it's white. It's supposed to be, it's very good for you. So would that be a separate bracha?
Technically, that would be Hadamah, but if you're eating it together with the orange and you had in mind when you're eating it that you're eating that also, then it would be part of the apple. I mean, part of the orange, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, next thing over here is like this. So if you make a smoothie, okay, you take fruit, you blend it in the blender or they're ground up. So then the bracha is shahakol if there's no pieces, which a typical smoothie, really you blend it well that there's no pieces. So a smoothie, even though you have fruits and vegetables in it, the bracha is shahakol. If you have pieces in it, like we said last time, orange juice with pulp, so then you'd make Haetz on the orange juice because there is part of the fruit in there, and then you would make Haetz. Okay, next thing is like this. There's something called rice, and there's something called millet. Okay. Now, rice and millet is one of them is called Eirez, and one of them is called Deichen. Okay. Now, Eirez, whatever that is, you make a mezainis. Okay, I'm using the words because I have to explain the problem over here with rice. There's orez and dochen. In English, it's translated as rice and millet. But in halacha, there's an argument. Now, rice, orez, halacha says is a mezainis, but the after bracha is very nefashis, because it's not one of the 5 grains. So orez, whatever orez is, you make a mezainis before and the very nefashis afterwards. Dochen, the bracha is shahako. Okay. Now the problem is we don't know in halacha what is orez and what is dochen. One is rice and one is millet, but we don't know which one's which. There are opinions that say orez is rice and dochen is millet. So according to that opinion, on rice you'd make a mezainis, and on millet you would make shahakol. I'm not sure if you eat it not ground up, but just as is, you'd eat a plate of rice. Then, according to those opinions, you'd make a mezainis on the rice, and you'd make a shahakal on the deichen, on the millet. The problem is other opinions say, no, that orez is millet. So on millet, you would make a mezainis, and on rice, you'd make a shahakal. So there's a big argument in halacha. Most opinions, and that's why you see in brachas lists, most people, because in modern day Hebrew, the word for rice is orez. The word for millet is dochen. That's because many opinions rule that rice is orez and millet is dochen. So according to that opinion, if you're eating a bowl of rice, you would make a mezainis. Not raw, because raw rice is not edible. If you eat raw rice, you'd make a shahakol for sure. But if somebody eats cooked rice, fried rice, whatever different ways you make rice. So according to, in fact, the Mishnah Berurah, and most of the from world, by the way, on rice would make a mezainis. And therefore on rice cakes, they would make a mezainis, because they hold orez is rice, and the Mishnah says orez you make a mezainis, but the after bracha is not ala michya. The after bracha would be very nefashis.
Rabbi, isn't the
Let me just finish the point, then I'll take the question. Now, Rebbe holds that, and Kitzer says this detail of it also, because there's a question: what bracha do you make on rice? Do you make a mezainis or do you make a shahakol? So the Alter Rebbe says the best thing is to eat it during a meal where you wash them bread. Because you wash them bread, there is no question anymore. The hametzi covers it. So therefore, that's the best way to eat rice. But push comes to shove. What happens if somebody is not washing? They don't have bread. The Alter Rebbe holds you make a shahakol on rice. Why? Because there's an argument if it's mezainis or shahakol, and we learned already that passively shahakol is good for everything. So because there's an argument in halacha, it's not that we go learn you have to go learn the bracha. Because there's an argument in halacha, the Alter Rebbe says the best thing to do is to make a shahakol on rice. So according to many opinions, like the Mishnah Berurah, other opinions, and that's like the whole, let's say most of the Litvisha world, the Frum world out there will make a mezainis on rice. But afterwards, again, better in the fashas. Those that follow the Alter Rebbe hold that the Alter Rebbe says you make a shahakol, and that's what we do. Now, the Alter Rebbe says the best thing is to eat it during the meal, because then again, you're washing, that's not an issue. But what happens if you're not? So then there's another thing. because without getting into it now, there's three possibilities for the bracha and rice that we eat. It could be mezanis according to one opinion, shahakol according to another opinion, and it sometimes could be ha'adama. If it's not cooked together, it's not stuck together. So therefore, what many chassidim do, if they want to eat rice and they don't want to wash, and they just don't want to make a shahakol because they want to do it the best possible way, they'll take a little piece of mezanis, they'll take a little piece of ha'adama, and they'll take a little piece of shahakol, and they'll make all three brachas, and that automatically covers the rice. But that would be a big difference if you're talking about Rice Krispies, you're talking about rice cakes, you're talking about rice. Bottom line, as followers of the Alter Rebbe, bottom line, if you're eating rice and you're not eating it during the meal, you make a shahakol. So if somebody wants to eat a rice cake, they make a shahakol on the rice cake. It's a very practical din, and you'll find in a lot of brachas books, that has what brachas for what. They'll tell you it's mezanis, but according to us, the Alter Rebbe holds if you're not eating it during the meal, you make a shahakol on it.
So why do the bother of mezanis, shahakol, and hadamah?
The reason why, because Alter Rebbe says the best thing is to eat it during the meal. If not, passively, you make a shahakol on it. But if you don't want to do passively and you want to do it the right way, so then the only question on rice could be one of three brachas: mezanis, shahakol, or hadamah. So if I take mezanis on something, shahakol on something, hadamah on something, I cover the rice for sure. It's not passively, it's just I'm covering all angles of what the bracha really would be able to be on rice. Okay. Now, I'm not getting into, somebody wrote what's a question. I don't want to talk about soups. Soups are very, very complicated. I just want to say something though, that fruits and vegetables that were cooked primarily for the liquid, okay, they're cooked primarily for the liquid. On the liquid, you make shahakol. Where do we see that very practical? Coffee and tea. Tea is made from tea leaves, which normally would not be a shahakol. They grow on the ground. And coffee comes from coffee bean. I don't mean the store coffee bean. I mean from the coffee bean. So, why isn't a hadamah soup? Because they roast and they cook whatever they do, they actually roast it, and they sometimes cook it. But there is a process. But because that fruit or vegetable, meaning the tea leaves and the coffee bean, which are both vegetables, halachik hadamah, because they're primarily cooked exclusively for the tea and coffee, so then the bracha is shahakol. Therefore, even beer, which is brewed from barley, and barley is, either hadamah or mezanis, depending if it's cooked or floured or not. The bottom line is, on beer, you make a shahakol. Even because the barley that in the process of the beer, they're cooking it for the liquid. You don't even eat the solid. So then it would be a shahakol on beer, coffee, and tea, and so on, so forth. Okay, next din is what's called ikar and tafel, primary and secondary. What does it mean, primary and secondary? If I have two things in front of me, and the only reason I'm eating one is because I'm eating the second, and without the second, I wouldn't eat the first. For instance, I take, I'm just trying to think of a simple, you have tons of things like that. Okay, the Shulchan Aruch Rebbe says this example also. A person feels very weak, so you want to take some sharp food, like the example is very salty fish, because they feel very weak and they want to eat salty fish, but it's too salty for them. So they're going to take a piece of bread to dilute this salty fish. In other words, if they wouldn't be eating the salty fish, they wouldn't be eating the bread. The only reason they're eating the bread is because they're eating the salty fish. So therefore, even though it's bread, and here's a unique din, even though it's bread, and it's better not to do this with bread, but in many poskim say, the fact that you're eating the bread only because you're eating the salty fish, so the bread becomes secondary to the salty fish. You only make a bracha on the salty fish, shahako, and now the Rebbe holds you don't even have to wash on the bread because the bread is a non-existent entity. It's secondary to the primary food, which is the salty herring. Or for instance, somebody wants to take a shot of mashka. They want to make a l'chaim. And, it's sharp. So right away, they take a piece of cake. Now, the only reason that if that's the case, if the only reason they're eating the cake is because they took the shot of booze that they wanted, and if they didn't take the booze, they wouldn't need the cake, but they want the booze, and therefore they're eating the cake, you don't make a bracha on the cake. The proper thing to do, and this is what Chassidim do, first you make a bracha on the cake, and then you make a shahakol on the whiskey. But what happens halachically? If somebody first took the shot of booze and they wouldn't eat the cake and they just need something in the mouth to tame out the whiskey, so technically you would not make a bracha on it, on the cake. Okay, but if somebody eats a lot of cake or a lot of bread, then obviously you'd have to make a bracha on that bread or cake. But I'll give you a lot of examples. Let's say you're eating cereal and milk. Okay, so you want a bowl of a cereal that's Hadamah, whatever cereal may be. It's Hadamah, let's say, rolled oats. But you put milk in the cereal. Now, what's the primary? What's the secondary? You're eating the cereal. You only add the milk because you want to eat the cereal. You don't eat the cereal because you want to drink the milk. So then you only make a bracha on the cereal and you don't make a bracha on the milk. Unless if you took some of the milk before you put it into the cereal. But if you took a bowl, poured cereal into the bowl, which is Hadamah, let's say, and then you added milk, the bracha on that cereal is Hadamah, even if at the end you have a little bit of milk left over, and you're now drinking that milk plain at the end of the bowl, a spoonful of milk, you do not make a shahakol on the milk because it was covered with the bracha of the cereal. If somebody wants to take, people do it, by the way, it's crazy as it sounds. Let's say you're going to put a little honey on an apple. Okay, Rosh Hashanah, well, let's say by Hoshana Rabbah, okay, by Tilim over there, they give out apples and honey. And you put a little honey on the apple, and you're eating it together. Now, apple is Haetz, the honey is shahakol. If you eat plain honey, honey is shahakol. But if you put honey on the apple, or some people will put peanut butter on the apple, and you bite into the apple, you only make Haetz on the apple. You do not make a shahakol on the honey or on the peanut butter, unless if you ate that first. Somebody wants to eat before they put the peanut butter on the apple, they take a lick of peanut butter, then you make a shahakol on the peanut butter, then you make Haetz on the apple. But if they're already mixed together and you're eating the apple with the peanut butter, but the peanut butter is only there because you're eating the apple, so then the din is you only make a bracha on the primary, which is the apple, which is the reason why you're eating it, and you don't make a bracha on the honey or the peanut butter or anything else. Now
what about cooked cereal like oatmeal? What would that be? And you add milk?
Oatmeal is mezainis, and there's no second. If you put milk into the oatmeal, in fact, you only make a mezainis on the oatmeal.
Okay, thank you.
Oatmeal is mezainis.
Thank you.
But I'll give you another example, and this can happen very often. Somebody makes a salad. Okay, make a salad. So you have, I'm not giving any recipes, as you know. You have lettuce and cucumbers, and middle you put in some almonds, raisins. People put raisins on top of a salad. Now, raisins and almonds are eights. The salad is Hadamah. Okay, but the raisins and the almonds are to give taste to the salad. The lettuce is not there for the raisins or the almonds. The almonds are there for the lettuce and cucumbers and tomatoes and everything else you put in there. So because of this rule of Iker and Tofel, primary and secondary, the bracha on the salad would be Hadamah. Now, the Rebbe also says another possible scenario. Let's say you have fruit cocktail. The cans have these fruit cocktails. Some of the fruit is eights, and some of the fruit is Hadamah. And by you, they're both same. They're the same thing. So what do? What bracha do you make on a can of fruit? I'm saying cans of fruit cocktail because that's when it's actually the way it is. So then the bracha is on the majority. If the majority of the fruit cocktail is ha'etz, the bracha is ha'etz, even on the pineapple. If the majority is Hadamah, then you make Hadamah because by you they're both the same. There's no iker, there's no primary and secondary. By you they're both the same. You're not eating one because of the next. You're eating both together. So then what do? You make a bracha on the majority. If the most of it is ha'etz, it's ha'etz. Most of it's Hadamah, it's Hadamah. And this is, these are very practical cases, by the way, of, in day-to-day living, not only on Shabbos. What?
You said the same preference by you. Now, what if they're not the same preference and you would make separate brachos?
If let's say you're eating a salad and you like the almonds and the raisins more than the salad, yes? So then the halacha is, if you want, even though the majority is the salad, Hadamah, if you want, because by you the minority is, or the secondary is what you prefer, you're allowed to make a bracha first on the secondary and then make a bracha on the primary.
And the fruit cocktail.
Same thing. But once you make a bracha on the primary, it automatically covers. It's late already. I want to go to Tanya, but you have the same thing, ice cream cones, and you have a lot of them with Nezanis now coming up. These are very, very practical dinim. Mitzvah next Wednesday, we will do those dinim. And now we're going to go to Tanya. I just want to mention, as I mentioned Monday night, we had this campaign. Campaign has been extended to midnight tonight. So I know a lot of you gave, and we appreciate the people that joined the campaign. But if you didn't join yet and you want to join, please feel free after the class or during the class if you want to go to the jewishbeverlyhills.com. You'll find the campaign, the link to the campaign, or Chabad of Beverly Hills, either one, and you can be part of it. And we thank you very much.